Report, and we have Ryan for us. Ryan Frace talking about NutriMeds. Ryan, what people should understand when they listen to the program, and I know there's a lot of health programs here on Genesis Network. All of them have their own niche and their own areas that they have their expertise. What we do, though, is quite different. It's different than any other radio or television program on the planet. I know that from lots of different sources now over the years. We've been with Genesis 10 years now. Because we provide what we call comprehensive answers to people's specific questions with the most advanced medicine and the most advanced nutraceutical and genetic and epigenetic-based functional medicine and high-quality nutraceuticals that jump over the metabolic defect, the gene defect, and the toxic defects that will block their enzyme pathways. That's very unique. So, for example, when you see someone like Angelina Jolie getting surgery to become a hollow woman, thinking it's a cure for her illness by cutting out all the offending organs, almost like that ancient saying, if thine eye offend thee, cut it out. Well, if thy genetic profile offend thee, you don't cut out every organ that's where you have a genetic defect. You jump over the defect with a nutraceutical protocol custom designed for you, and you have proper surveillance to make sure, and you actually take nutraceuticals to repair your DNA like malignant block that'll actually take and do surveillance. So when cells are becoming stressed, they don't change their DNA and become cancer. Because remember now, it's a stress cell that's a healthy, strong cell that becomes cancer, not a weaker, mutated cell. That theory is garbage. The same way as vascular disease. We know cholesterol doesn't cause heart disease. It's oxidized cholesterol. It's trans fats. It's stress on the intimal lining of the artery wall. It's lack of nitric oxide production and production of free radicals. So if your antioxidant mechanisms are not working properly and you have pro-inflammatory fatty acids in your diet, and you don't correct the things like small particle HDL, which are toxic underneath the intimal lining, and VLDL, or very low density cholesterol, and you got an elevation of cytokines that cause inflammation of your vascular tree and increased blood viscosity. That's why we have nutraceuticals like nattokinase. We can lower blood viscosity, we can lower vascular inflammation, we can prevent things that burn your artery walls like homocysteine. It's a byproduct of disturbed methylation with bio-LVR, semmethyl, superfolate, and power-methyl B12. So NutriMedical is very unique. There is no competition. A lot of people try to compete. Let's put it this way. In terms of nutraceutical advice about both the best advanced medicine, whether it's dealing with stem cell therapy, surgery, advanced clinics, and even clinics, for example, like the one at Duke University, they're using viruses to kill cancer using a chimeric polio virus, which I'm nervous over, but I'm very excited by the fact that they're using, I call immunotherapy. But we already have a lot of components of that. We have Inflamex that strips off the fibronectin capsule. We've got the only neutral pH in the world, the ascorbic acid form called salts, calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium ascorbate with bioperin. So if you're got cancer, we put you immediately on 60 gram equivalents a day of Power C with full vitamin K2, which will stimulate cell apoptosis and repair of DNA, along with malignant block, which is by capsule 5 pounds of broccoli seed extract to repair the DNA or make the cells go through apoptosis. So there's really no comparison between what we provide and anybody else. I mean, they'll try to say they have something equivalent, but they don't. And we can validate that with specific functional medical testing, advanced imaging, genetic testing, epigenetic lab testing, and even quantum testing, such as our QRMA and now the ETLRIS, where it'll even diagnose right down to the anatomical location and the pathology of what's wrong by just putting on the headphones of the system developed by Dr. Nemtsov of the University of Moscow and their Nonlinear Systems Research Center, licensed by Chinese and scientists there that are collaborating to advance it to the next stage, and they've asked me to actually collaborate when their scientists come here to California to move it to the next stage beyond what they already have. So there's no competition. We're like, NutriMedical is like the Usain Bolt of nutraceuticals. Don't even get on the track. We're going to leave you in the dust. You have no way of competing with us. Forget it. That's the truth, isn't it?
That's a good visualization right there for people. It's hard when it comes
we're
to
using,
product.
without breaking a sweat, without breaking a sweat, we're going to tell people what drugs are work and what ones are dangerous, what procedures are useful and what procedures are dangerous. For example, in the last segment, we talked about mild hyperbaric oxygen as a treatment for people who had previous bends and developed post-bends neuropathy and spinal gliosis of their cord. We tell them what nutraceuticals they should be previously taking before they even go to deep diving at 500 to 1,000 feet plus. but are servicing deep well drills for, let's say, in the North Sea. This gentleman that was actually calling in from Texas worked in the North Sea. No one else does that. We'll give an immediate answer, tell them exactly what technologies to use that integrate medicine, the best of medicine, and the best of science, and the best of nutraceuticals and epigenetics. There's nobody else, period, that does that. We are the only ones. And that's why I want people to understand, don't get your nutraceuticals elsewhere. I see mixing and matching. I'm going to get some from this guy and some from that guy and support them. Forget it. Get all your nutraceuticals here at NutriMedical. If you need advice, you get a quick free consult right away. If you haven't got a membership because you're a regular customer, get one, and you get more advanced consults. And as yet, I haven't had to charge anybody for even time period where people have dumped, MRIs, CT scans, and tons of medical records and say, just summarize. You don't have to give me all that stuff. I just need a summary, and I'm not going to charge you. You just have to have a membership at our NutriMedical to access the wellness conditions, consults, and live streams. So let's talk about that for a minute. What makes NutriMeds so unique? If you were to summarize, Ryan, why would someone get NutriMeds rather than going to Amazon or going to some vitamin store and say, hey, I think I figured out my condition? If you think you're bright enough to outsmart literally almost now more than a third of a century, getting close to half a century of work I've done and thousands of doctors behind me that I'm connected to, you're crazy. You really have what I call a form of suicidal narcissism to think that you know more than the collective of thousands of doctors, not just Deagle. Thousands of doctors around the world that are backing all of our NutriMed line and all the research behind it. You are functionally narcissistically suicidal.
I think they're always hopeful. The next miracle thing is there, and somebody,
it's
makes
not
a
hopeful.
Quick statement saying it helps them, and then it's sort of like it's one of many that will go by the wayside.
Everybody's looking for
attack it from that
right. They need also know that there's also not a silver bullet with silver bullets. Right. I mean, it's almost like you have to cut out the pattern of wellness through a combination of things, and that's why I use the power of ones: oxygen, including mild hyperbaric oxygen and ozone; NutriMeds, which is targeted to your metabolic, genetic, and toxic conditions, because you have gene defects and you have toxins that block enzymes. And that means also remineralizing the body, protecting your mitochondria, stimulating new mitochondriogenesis, because most disease is based on mitochondrial dysfunction, hypoxia, and acidosis. And finally, electromagnetic and stellar technology, and then stem cells. And we have stem cell support technologies. We have things like our MyCell D3, Myco D2, Microdose, Collagen Max, etc., that'll stimulate your stem cell activity. But if you don't have all the vitamins and minerals activated, like our CRAX amino acid chelated minerals, I hear all kinds of people, they're pushing this thing and that thing, like I hear about, for example, longevity, which is specifically using minerals that are just basically ionic minerals that are from the deep ground. They're going to contain heavy metals, number one. They're going to be in an ionic state that jams through the normal transport mechanism across the cell. They're not taken across the cell as a protein amino acid chelate, which is the primary and top way to bring minerals into your cells. And they don't have even the amplification technology of NDMEs, which we use additionally to increase the nucleoplasm levels of minerals to activate the transcription of new messenger RNA and make new proteins. Everybody else is a pretender to the throne. And you need to understand you're not. You're not out there. And I can validate it with testing, pack red cell testing of your mineral levels to prove that we can remineralize better, QRMA testing, other functional medicine tests through advanced labs, organic acids like Great Plains Lab, Genova Metametrics, Doctors Data, toxicology labs. You might think you can compete with Dr. Deagle. Forget it. It's not possible. Stop doing it. Stop trying to diagnose yourself. And if you're a health professional, I will teach you. If you're a willing student, and it doesn't matter what specialty, you can be a plastic surgeon, orthopedics, cardiac surgeon, invasive pathologist, I will give you additional skills that will make you a better doctor and health provider if you're a professional trainer. But don't think you know more than Dr. Bill. You don't. That's just the way it is. One of the products we're working on is coming down the line. It's the Sports Energy with a capital G lights drink, and this, of course, energizes your mitochondria, re-energizes your electrolytes, protects your cells from oxidative stress. There's nothing like it. It's actually so powerful. It's the nitrogen sachets. Those will be coming out soon. I think that we have other things in process. I've done also some You've also done some changes to our...
a nice one. I think everybody, you get ramped up here. It's time to, get out exercising and stuff and get ready.
Yeah, we just launched our new, it was called a Vascu Care, which is new propionate L-carnitine that goes perfectly with our CoQ10 Supreme, which is the only non-crystallizing CoQ10, and our CoQ10 ubiquinol for energizing your mitochondria and your vascular tree. I've also been modified and now are launching our CardioVasc circulatory formula. It was based on the CardioVite formula, which is further improved. So we're working on a lot of fronts, and we're constantly doing time stamping and updating the protocols. We'll be embedding more PowerPoints, live stream video clips, and the full consults. So we'll be doing some conferences coming up here soon too. I'd like to do conferences where we have people that can dial into they can actually put questions on our conference live and ask questions, and they can get an answer live, which will be cool. It'll be on our live stream channel, and we'll discuss all kinds of different topics, not only health but other geopolitical and other issues. So, Brian, let's go back to some of the latest. It's amazing the kind of questions I get for with people's nutraceuticals. When the people say, "Well, what are your latest consults? What are the latest?" And they don't realize just how many I do in an average day. For example, we had a question about CRE, which is the drug-resistant enterococci. And I said, well, the first thing is that every day people are exposed to pathogens. There's three classes we call stealth pathogens. They can be extra or intracellular, like chronic viral infections like the inclined village nevada cytomegalovirus. Chronic viral infections, and there's some strange ones out there now, like we recently researched. The Green Med Info has put out an article that talks about some of these unusual viruses that actually are linked now with chronic fatigue syndrome. You can measure blood levels at immunosciences, for example, of some of the cytokines that are causing we call chronic stealth infection-induced or vaccine-induced mitochondriopathies. And people say, well, you can't prove that, Diego. Yes, I can, actually. I know the lab directors like Dr. Wujdani for 35 years, who was at UCLA when he did our research with Dr. Chung on toxic adjuvants causing cancer and autoimmune disease, looking at toluene diisocyanates, monobody workers, trimellitic anhydride from diesel fuel, and formaldehyde. So people say you can't prove it. Wrong, doctor. I can't prove it. And the problem is, you see, when you have concrete things like this, it shows you just how crazy things are, like the vaccines. And if you want to get healthy, you got to take nutraceuticals. You can't just have an organic diet. The knuckleheads and people out there that say, all you need is an organic diet, I'm thinking, that's a good start. And clean filtered water, like pure water system water. But if you're not taking nutraceuticals targeted to your metabolic defects, which you're going to have from your parents and grandparents, and your toxic load, because every individual has 10,000 chemicals of parts per million or higher in North America. Some of those areas in the country are real high. And like Dr. William Ray said, they test even for heavy metals and radiotoxins in people now. And they have an organic acid test of even breath. And so people want to know how to contact Dr. Ray at the Environmental Health Center of Dallas and do a breath test for toxins. I can direct you. And so you and your doctor will learn and realize just how ignorant you are because you haven't asked the right questions or know the right research labs or specialized clinics. You won't have any idea just how you need to have it specifically custom to you, and it might change in 3 months or 6 months or a year. And that's how important this is. So, Ryan, let's talk about some of these latest questions that we have. For example,
sure.
Yeah, it's. I'm just going to look at some of my latest consults because I get a ton of them every.
Okay.
Let's see. Here we go. Okay. Let's see. Somebody wanted to know about vitamin K2. And I want you to talk about the full vitamin K2. Full vitamin K2 is kind of cool. It's not only necessary for your bones to remineralize and lay down the osteoblast and lay new lamellae. You think of them as a little cell with a trowel. And they're trying to trowel in little spirals around the lamellae of your bone. And they have to be on this framework, almost like rebar, of collagen type 29. But vitamin K2 also will stimulate cell apoptosis of cells that are damaged beyond repair or make the DNA repair. And we use it with high-dose Power C. It's one of the most powerful things to turn off autoimmune disease and cancer. And vitamin K2 has a number of different functions. So let's talk about that for a minute, and we'll talk about TH1 and TH2 cytokine levels in your body's immune system. It helps rebalance it, along with our Immunomax or NutriImmune. K2 is very, very powerful and very important.
Yeah, I think that people are starting to recognize and hear more and more about K2, just like they did with vitamin D3. And they were saying, well, D, how important is D? And now all of a sudden it's like, that's well understood. You've got to get your D levels up because of how profound it is. Well, K2 is a lot like that. And the reason that a lot of people will be low in vitamin K2, I'd like to point out, it has to do with basically dysbiosis in the gut. So if you get an abundance of bad bacteria going from sugar, stress, alcohol, bad diet, next thing you know, you don't produce enough K2, so you don't regulate, as you said, from the immune system to regulation of bone mineral density. There's all these implications that start going downstream from there. And so being able to supplement with K2 is really important, and it's very profound in what it can do for the body. And then at the same time, if you are a person that should be using K2, strongly urge that you look at starting to repair the gut. You got to start looking at something like Immunomax. You start looking at Living Probiotic Ultra and making sure that you're doing gut repair so that your body will start producing significant amounts of K2 as well for long-term balance and health.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, it's part of a protocol. And somebody else asked for, well, how do you approach autoimmune conditions? And I like to give what I call a 1, 2, 3 protocol and say, look, we'll need a more advanced consult where you send me your wellness and medical history. I'll even send you a mini form to fill out. And you're going to need a more advanced protocol. We'll use K2, Immunomax, or NutriMune, Power C Plus with a full vitamin K2 for the starting protocol for autoimmune conditions. That's very important. That'll help to start getting the Th1 to Th2 cytokines so your immune system comes back into proper balance. Next most common is diabetes. And I tell people, here's your starting protocol. Diabetoline max, the leptin metabolic, minerals plus, lipoflush, and glycemics, meals and snack replacement. Let's talk about the combination here. The research in diabetoline is we get a lot of people that get off oral diabetic agents, or if they're on insulin, they get off the insulin. Leptin metabolic will actually start to reverse the leptin and insulin resistance. And in minerals plus, and we sometimes will add also chromium cruciferate, will reverse the mineral deficiency of vanadium and chromium and other trace minerals that are necessary to reduce the insulin resistance in the tissue, along with lipoflush, the leptin metabolic, and then glycemics to do a meal replacement, snack replacement for blood sugar control and insulin reduction and glucagon reduction. When we come back, we'll talk about this for a few minutes. Diabetoline max, leptin metabolic, minerals plus, lipoflush, and glycemics. I call it the starting core diabetic protocol. A lot of people don't realize diabetes is ravaging the whole world. In countries like China, they used to have everybody on bicycles, and the place was relatively non-polluted, and most of the food was organic. What's going on right now is the food supply worldwide is demineralized with toxic pesticides, chemicals everywhere, basically a sedentary population that's dying of what I call, being in a seated position for too much of their day. It's very bad. And the diabetes rate's going right through the ceiling because we have a lot of stimulants, even, quote, the artificial sweeteners like aspartame and Splenda, raise blood insulin level and actually cause more insulin resistance even than sugar. So people need to realize you have an alternative. You don't have to rush into insulin because insulin itself in high dosages by itself is a toxin. Insulin drives metabolic processes that actually cause increased organ and tissue damage. Yes, it'll bring your blood sugar down, but your body is actually making far too much insulin in the first place. If you measure the millunits of insulin in a diabetic, they're 3 to 5 times on average higher than normal, not a below normal, as some knucklehead doctors used to argue with me years ago until we did research with the head of pathology, checked at the University of Edmonton Hospital, and sent off for every month for standardization at Biosciences in La Jolla in the early 80s. And when I did my research with the head of pathology, the answer to the medical profession was to persecute and threaten to pull my license, just for doing the research. So I don't have a lot of respect for what I call stupid doctors, and I don't try to pull punches anymore. I'm now a martial artist. I punch through the target. If they want to fight with me, get into my cage match, it's going to get ugly. That's my attitude now. And it works. It works because I don't get any comers that are stupid enough to argue with me unless they have really good data. And if I can be taught by a grandmother, that's perfectly fine. I don't mind. If somebody can prove to me that I've got something wrong in one of my theses, great. I want to move forward. But I don't want people to pretend that the current medical profession lumping people with higher and higher doses of insulin and lots of diabetic drugs like some of these PPAR gamma 1 inhibitor drugs They're okay. They're not. They're not. They're dangerous too. A lot of people have, popped on 30, 40 pounds in a month or so on these drugs, and they get in trouble. So, pretty crazy, isn't it?
Well, there's so much misinformation out there. Like you just brought up all these different points about, alternatives. People are like, oh, this doesn't have sugar in it. It's using, something else. And it's like, well,
aspartame and Splenda, and they'll actually drive your blood insulin resistance higher.
And not just the ways, like you said, maybe insulin spiking is one aspect, but the chemical itself is a whole other thing. It's something that literally it doesn't exist in this world. And you start putting it in your body, it's like, now you got a whole other problem.
Aspartame turns spontaneously into diketopiperazine, which is a neuro and genotoxin. Formaldehyde and methyl alcohol that can make you blind and damage your retinal cells in your central nervous system. Now, what's a diabetoline max? This by itself in controlled studies has shown in most people that are mild or we call borderline diabetes, that's all you need.
Yeah.
Then if you have insulin levels, you want to drop get your appetite under control, drop your leptin resistance, because leptin is a natural molecule your fat makes to tell your brain, stop eating, you're fat enough. Because you've got to remember, fat is a survival mechanism. If you have a tendency to be fat, it's because you have ancestors that survived famine, period. Mm-hmm. You have genes, basically, your body's thinking you've got an unstable food supply because you've got toxic food coming in. And the body's saying, impending famine, and it pulls the lever, and all of a sudden, now you're getting fat, and you say, well, how did that happen? And you don't have to eat more calories either. People have to understand that. That's why when you go on a nutrient-dense diet that regulates insulin resistance and the stress hormones like cortisol, etc., your body can start losing weight and increasing lean body mass, just like your professional trainer, but just a normal person. So things like leptin metabolic and lipoflush that'll mobilize fat out of fat stores, this normalizes your body and actually takes the angry fat and says, don't be angry, calm down now. You can be okay. It's okay. You're not starving. There's not a famine impending. You don't have to blow up 100 pounds. But your body says, no, famine's coming. I got to blow up. And you can eat a lot less calories, and your body will just continue to shunt it away. People don't understand. So chasing calories is stupid, too. They have to understand, yes, you want to avoid sugar. I tell people to avoid food allergens, especially things like gluten-containing bread, anything GMO. Avoid beer, which is maltose. It has a glycemic index of 140. It's even faster than sugar. And you can have some dry wine once in a while. That's okay. But any other form of alcohol, especially hard alcohol, maybe a little vodka once in a while because it's got such low glycemic index. But you got to make sure it's no more than maybe an ounce or so. People that take too much of alcohol are also going to drive up their blood insulin. One of the best things to do in a habit is to substitute 1 or 2 meals a day and 2 snacks with glycemics. So tell us all about these products. Why are they so important?
I think that when you bring up these blood sugar regulators, and sometimes you categorize people as, before they become diabetic, which is, hard for them to understand. I think that, if they start seeing weight gain around the middle, right?
Everybody, everybody, by the way, that is gaining weight is a pre-diabetic. Yeah. And if you have a dyslipidemia...
Making people aware of those kind of things, those basic things. Your blood pressure is starting to creep up, your cholesterol is becoming, quote, abnormal, triglycerides are going up. So if those things are going on, your doctors or whoever is kind of going, we'll just keep an eye, or you might have to go on a medicine. They're screaming at you. You know what they're really saying is, you need to fix the deeper issue, which is your body cannot handle the type of foods you're putting in there. It's either nutrient depleted, it's got, substances in there that is spiking your, insulin response, and you're stressing your system. And it doesn't know how to respond. So when Dr. Bell brings these things up, like diabetoline, I would really make sure that every single person out there, really, if you live in the United States of America, and as you said, Dr. Bell, it's spreading around the world, but you really need to be first on Vitamin Mineral Max as an absolute foundation. Activated B vitamin.
And minerals, Vitamin Mineral Max, and the Minerals Plus, of course, too, because there's even higher concentrations.
But then adding in that diabetoline is really a critical starting point for almost everybody that's starting to, kind of move down this road. And then I like the shakes, like you said, the glycemic meal. If people haven't used those, what's so great is you're looking always trying to find foods that you can eat that are healthy and supportive to moving you in the right direction. And glycemic meal fits that need for so many people. People that need to lose weight, people that need to keep that glucose under control, that support insulin sensitivity. It just had remarkable changes with regards to, inflammatory markers, and helping to adjust those, like as people get more and more aware of things like CRP, which would give you a gauge of systemic inflammation going on in the body, which is so critical. It just works so well in working in those areas, as well as elevations of hemoglobin A1C, and it attacks it from so many different levels. So that's a big one. People that do have, elevating hemoglobin A1Cs, more chronic issues, they're moving really into those diabetic situations. Certainly we've got to look at NUTRIMEDICAL, top seller in the NutriMed line, and it is a controlled release patented form of alpha lipoic acid, an extremely powerful substance.
Yeah, you're going beyond the core, but that's really important because people need to understand if you have an elevated HbA1c over 7, you're diabetic. If you're under that, you're pre-diabetic. People don't realize increased glycation is going to cause arterial damage, which means if your blood pressure is high, you can go into heart failure. You're going to get retinal problems, cataracts, hardened blood vessel walls because they're now getting glycated. So NutriMed is going to help that tremendously to reverse glycation. The other thing is ultra-thiamine B1. Thiamine deficiency protects against diabetic neuropathy, vascular disease, and central nervous system problems where you get basically we call diabetes of the brain. I call type 3 diabetes, not type 1, which is antibodies against the pancreas. Type 2 is insulin resistant. Type 3 is where the brain cells get resistant to insulin. And now your astrocytes are saying, hey, I can't use that. I can use coconut oil and then medium-chain triglycerides. That's bad, which means your primary dementia is basically diabetes of the brain. And that sort of leads to the next area that people ask me about is depression. I say, well, look, let's start off, and this is core. There's other things we can add. We always start off with Vitamin Mineral Max Minerals Plus. But Brain Mag, which is the magnesium 3 Calm Mind, and BioLVR, and of course I add Posinol. But when we come back, we'll talk about how to deal with depression and anxiety, which usually are two sides of the same coin, and often they go together. Brain Mag, Calm Mind, BioLVR, and of course you're already on, if you're smart, Vitamin Mineral Max and Minerals Plus. BioLVR, we're trying to correct neurotransmitters, calm the brain down, stop anxiety, and we all would add to that, of course, with the BioLVR, we may add methyl, power methyl B12, and superfolate, because the process of the tryptase and pyrrolase enzymes requires the presence of trace minerals, which we already talked about. Molybdenum is important, believe it or not, for those enzymes, and all the other minerals like manganese. You want to have all the minerals present in Vitamin Mineral Max and all the cofactor vitamins, especially activated B6, B12, and folic acid. So what's in Brain Mag? Why is it so important, along with Calm Mind, for not only calming the brain but stopping seizure activity in the limbic system, which is the cause of depression? Depression is a non-motor seizure activity in the limbic system.
Well, Brain Mag is a very cool new release into the NutriMed line, and it uses a specialized form of magnesium. So when we take typical magnesium supplements, although it's wonderful for our bodies, it does not cross the blood-brain barrier effectively, and so you don't get an increase in that area. And if that's a deficiency that's occurring and creating neurotransmitter imbalance or improper synaptic activity, then all of a sudden we've got other problems to deal with. And so this is as fundamental as saying you want to elevate magnesium levels in the body, but you're using a specialized form. In this case, this is known as MAG-3 and this threonic acid, amino acid, can easily cross the blood-brain barrier, and by attaching the magnesium to it, just a small amount, it allows it to get across, and in scientific studies in animals and in humans showing that it can increase then specifically the magnesium levels in the brain. And it's breakthrough. Each serving of this, though, will deliver 200 milligrams of elemental magnesium, so that it's going to have a profound effect on the body as well as the brain. And the studies that have been done with this particular nutrient, this form of magnesium on the brain in animals in particular, they've seen that dealing with anxiety issues, stress, short and long-term memory improvements, protection against damage to the brain tissues, like you'd see as a progression of Alzheimer's disease, and even in these animals that have a genetic SNP that creates the propensity for the development of Alzheimer's disease. In humans, we know that genetic SNP is the ApoE genotype, and it's really neat to see some of these studies coming out on animals showing how positive they respond in protecting their brain tissue just by making sure they have adequate amounts of magnesium in their brain. So that's a pretty exciting option with Brain Mag. And as you say, Calm Mind, huge seller in the NutriMed line. Once one person tries it in the family, it starts spreading like wildfire because they go, I think this could be good for you for this situation. because we all deal with stress. We all deal with anxiety at different points in the day. For some people, it's morning, some it's afternoon, some it's evening, and it disturbs sleep patterns. Calm Mind can work all across the board, and what's so neat is it's a powder and it's fast. Usually 1 to 2 scoops, and in 15 to 20 minutes, you can have a profound impact on what's going on. And it's really helpful for kids and adults. There's a cherry flavor, and there's also what we call the neutral flavor, meaning it's not sweetened with anything, but it mixes really well. It goes right into whatever you want, a shake, juice, anything. It's very easy to use and be able to use multiple dosings at the same time to have a significant impact.
Right. Now, we get a response usually in 3 or 4 days, not 3 or 4 weeks like the regular drugs, and people should understand that. What I find kind of amazing is how fast it can work. A lot of people feel the anxiety is gone almost literally within an hour, and the depression lifts within 3 or 4 days. And what it means is the brain is no longer seizuring. You're getting a rise in neurotransmitter levels. You're getting a rise in what they call the release of endorphins and dynorphin, because there's normal, not only GABAergic pathways in the brain, but also normal pathways that regulate mood, energy level. Dopaminergic pathways normalize in the brain because you're providing the building blocks. That's why things like Semethyl is so important. Bio-LVR is a starter, and you can start correcting neurotransmitter levels. I've been measuring for years, by the way, platelet levels of bioamines in people's blood, and you can actually measure their platelet levels. But now we know we really don't need to do that. You can do organic acid tests in urine just as well, and you can see the organic acid metabolites showing the normalization of their pathway. So when people say, someone's got depression, so you give them, I call Kill-U-Jack, which is Prozac, or these variant drugs like Celexa. These drugs are dangerous. They cause deep repression of normal inhibitory pathways, so people basically will go home and kill their entire family if they're a vet and they've been deployed in Iraq doing host-to-host clearing. And now when they come back, they say, well, there's no inhibition to committing suicide or mass murder. And that's what's dangerous about these drugs. It's probably the same situation that happened to this guy Lubitz, that was the Germanwings co-pilot, decided to drive it into the ground, into the Alps. He was on a Kill-U-Jack drug, and the knucklehead doctors thought he basically had a drug deficiency. That's why he had depression. No, he had a neurotransmitter imbalance, and he had seizure activity in his limbic system. So, doctors need to start getting with the program, realizing that real science is where we need to be using, not conjecture based on stupid logic and toxic drugs used like giving a laser and a advanced power tool set to a monkey to go inside a factory and fix things. He's probably going to screw up your factory, and that's what happens with these drugs. Pretty nasty analogy, hey?
Yeah, scary. It's scary.
As Einstein said, the genius is quantifiable, stupidity is limitless.
Give people hope. I want to point out, you brought it up earlier about something like Sam-methyl. What an important formulation. This is one, the ingredient is SAM-E, acetylenolmethionine, and in 2010, American Journal of Psychiatry, they actually were posting in their own journals about, a person that was non-responsive with moderate to severe depression, using SSRIs if they were non-responsive. What they were recommending to all the doctors in the United States was actually the addition of this actual nutrient, material.
Why didn't they just start off with that instead of going to drugs that take 4 to 6 weeks?
That would be probably great if they would do that. But it was neat to see that that's a recommendation, because when they added it to even taking that drug, they got all this profound improvement. But I would point out that what we're talking about with the NutriMeds is not your normal SAMe. This is a material that's actually a powder, the first stabilized powder SAMe that allows you to pour it really just along the lining of the gum. It's got a lemon flavor. You can just put it there, leave it for a minute or two, and then just kind of sip some water and drink it down. But allows for a very fast intake of the material. And it's also profound in that it has double the active isomer in this material versus what you would find in what they call pharmaceutical-grade SAMe, which unfortunately most people out there, if you've ever taken SAMe, I guarantee you're pretty much not taking a pharmaceutical level of SAMe.
Right. I recently talked to an IOMT dentist, and he tried to imply that taking SAMe would increase the conversion of mercury from your amalgams into methylmercury. Not so. The methylation of mercury by toxic bacteria in your gut If the mercury vapor comes off your teeth, it goes down, dissolved in the succus entericus, the fluid from your stomach, which is 1.5 liters per day. It goes into your bowel and gets reabsorbed in your large bowel. And it's your gut bacteria that actually create the methylated forms or the toxic forms, methyl, mercury, etc. So when you take SAMe, it actually pulls out the mercury. It increases methylation pathways in your liver, because what your body does is it takes these forms of mercury, turns them into a form that can be highly absorbed into bile, and then the mercury goes out in your stool. So it's the opposite of what you think. So if you're trying to get rid of heavy metals, we use our Keelar Max, we use Samethyl, we use our liquid zeolite, we use things to help to protect your tissues from the toxic effects like cell detox glutathione, because glutathione is one of the most important heavy metal detoxes. But Samethyl will not increase your body burdens of mercury, it decreases it. And it's really important to understand, if you're trying to reduce over a period of time and you haven't yet got all your amalgams out, you want to be on Keelar Max, Samethyl, you want to be on cell detox glutathione and cell protections like Regenerex, Nutritrala, and cell detox glutathione to protect your tissues while you're getting rid of the heavy metals. And of course our liquid zeolite. So, very important word on SAMe. Major stuff for depression, heavy metal toxicity, poisoning of toxic chemicals. As they say, the most important pathway in your phase 2 detox in your liver, which is deficient, is methylation, making digestive enzymes, myelinating your brain and peripheral nerves. Many, many enzymes are dependent on methylation, including getting rid of homocysteine and uric acid. Thank you, Ryan. It was an amazing program today. We'll see you again on Monday.
Thank you, Dr. Bill.
And coming up in hour number 3, Tim Alexander and Chris Harris. I'm on hour 2 today on the Meds program with major updates in lots of areas. As the weekend moves toward the Easter Passover weekend, we have our sale coming on midnight tonight. The 7 for Heaven sale starts